Swinging a ground ball, stabbed by Folk. He has it. He underhands to first, and the Boston Red Sox are the world champions. For the first time in 86 years, the Red Sox have won baseball's world championship. Can you believe it?
Good morning, Red Sox fans. My name is Tyler, and thank you for joining us on today's episode number 17. This is going to be I don't want to say two-part episode, but it's going to be broken up into two sections. I'm going to be doing the normal podcast, going over the last week's games, going over players that did well, players that didn't do well, so on and so forth, the same old usual stuff. And then the second half is going to be essentially a teardown of this ownership group, the Fenway Sports Group, John Henry, Craig Breslow, or the current chief baseball operations guy, and then also Chaim Bloom, and how we've gotten to the point that we've gotten to. So it's going to be a longer episode. It's probably going to be my longest episode to date. If when I'm doing the editing I can trim some fat, I'll obviously do that. But I do appreciate you all listening through the entire thing if possible. I'm not going to spend too much time on the Mariners or the Giants series. I did have some notes for each game, but it's not super in-depth. It's kind of like a summary of how the game went. Unfortunately, in the last week, Rafael Devers was traded right before the Mariners series, so the offense looks completely different. And then once I go through the rest of the podcast, I'll go through the rest of the series. Once I get to the final thoughts, I'm going to make a small closing segment on the Rafael Devers drama, and then I'm going to get right into the hit piece that I basically made for ownership, because I saw a lot of people say that, you can't blame Craig Breslow, he got Bregman, traded for Crochet, yada, yada, yada. But when you look at this 40-man roster, and especially the 26-man roster that is up at the big league level, there are a lot of holes that ownership and Craig Breslow went cheap on that left this team basically up creek without a paddle. So just to jump right into the last 7 days, or the last two series, we had a three-game series against the Mariners, and then a 3-game series against the Giants. Again, we traded Rafael Devers before the Mariners series, so all eyes were on the Red Sox during Game 1. Surprisingly, in Game 1, Lucas Giolito looked like an all-star. He went 6 strong innings and 10 strikeouts. Between Wilson, Weiser, and Chapman, they combined for 2 1/3 no-hit innings, and we ended up winning that game. Roman had an RBI. Abraham Toro had an RBI. So it was pretty much we won the first game 2-0. And then the series completely flipped on its head because we got shut out 8-0 in Game 2, mainly because Brian Wu shoved and Walker Buehler looked like cancer patient, or he looked like crap. He did not look like a competent major league pitcher, and that's a huge problem because he's now not only going back to his former self when he basically was DFA'd by the Dodgers, but he's looking like a worse version of that. He didn't even make it through the 3rd inning. The game was over by the 4th inning, and it was 7-0 by the 4th inning. So there's not much you can really say when Brian Wu is doing what Brian Wu does, and then Walker Buehler basically throws up all over himself on the mound. Game 3, Garrett Crochet looked pretty dominant. He gave up a run in the 2nd, but then nothing else after that. And then Story and Meyer made up our entire offense, and the game was over by the 5th or 6th inning. We ended up winning that game 3-1, and again, our bullpen looked excellent. Coming through after basically, like, I mean, I understand that Seattle's offense is pretty garbage, but when you have Cal Raleigh, who in my opinion is the greatest offensive talent in the American League, when you shut them out through 8 innings, because again, their only run in Game 3 came in the second, that's pretty impressive. Now, unfortunately, the Mariners did outscore the Red Sox in the series, but it's mainly because of that blow-up Game 2 where we lost 8-0. But going into the Giants series, we won that series against the Mariners, so I wasn't really sure how to feel. I was aware that the Giants have some pretty good young starting pitching. They also have Webb, who thankfully we didn't have to face. But in Game 1, Dobbins looked really shaky, and come to find out, he was dealing with a right elbow problem, which it can be, and in my opinion will probably be a big problem because he has had Tommy John surgery before, and for somebody who's had Tommy John surgery before to already be dealing with elbow problems, it doesn't look very bright for him going forward. As a whole, we lost the series 2 games to 1. We only won 1 game. Birds. Hey. Our offense looked good, but I think that was mainly because of the bad bullpen that the Giants have. They have a pretty good rotation, but then they don't really have any like lockdown middle relief arm until you get to Camilo Doval in the 9th, who we did end up seeing later in the series. But back to Game 1, Dobbins looked really shaky. And again, he was dealing with an elbow problem, so I can understand that. But overall, I think the Red Sox came into Game 1 saying we're going to stick it to Rafael Devers. And that's basically what they did. And it led to one of the coolest moments that I've seen in recent Red Sox history. It's 9th inning, game's on the line, Rafael Devers, Aroldis Chapman, and they both gave each other the coldest head nod I've ever seen simultaneously. And the end result of that was a 7-5 victory, and Aroldis Chapman blew away Rafael Devers with a 102-mile-an-hour fastball, basically up and in, which is a spot where Rafael Devers has struggled with consistently across his entire career. Game 2 was another 1-run loss, albeit it's not like we ever had the lead in Game 2 to begin with. Game 2 seemed close in the final score because Camilo Doval gave up 2 runs in the 9th inning. We were down by 3, basically by the halfway point of the game, and I can't even blame Brian Bayo for it because it's another situation where our defense cost us the game. Rafael Devers got a 2-run homer to make it 3-0 because David Hamilton doesn't understand how to play defense at second base. Period. If you make that play, Rafael Devers doesn't come up to bat, and he doesn't hit a 2-run home run opposite field off of Brian Bayo. And I heard a lot of nonsense online about Brian Bayo, like, gave it to him. He didn't. That's not the kind of player Brian Bayo is. But again, it's another one of those costly errors, and that was kind of like the big picture takeaway for most of the Giants series is we're back to ground zero with our defense. Simply put, our interior defense has not been good enough. And now it's starting to leak into the outfield, and it's becoming a very frustrating situation. Game 3 was the Red Sox versus the Giants and the refs, the entire game. Abraham Toro was called out for a play at the plate, and they said he was out of the base paths. He was literally 1.5 inches away from the plate. He wasn't even on the opposite side of the base path as going to first base. He was in the base path, going home. Made it safe to home and was called out because the umpires are fucking incompetent. Not even to mention that later on in the game, Jarren Duran hit a double with the game on the line, slid off of the bag while keeping his hand on the bag, and then was called out. Alex Cora then replayed that asked for a challenge. There's video and photographic evidence showing Jarren Duran's hand on the base before being tagged. And then the Major League umpire still called him out, even after reviewing it. And I will get to the review during my final thoughts because I don't want to bleed into that segment right now. But it's simply unacceptable from a fan standpoint, and it should be unacceptable from a league standpoint. It led to Jarren Duran and Alex Cora both being ejected, and it caused a lot of drama on social media, and I'm kind of sick of it. Because Jarren Duran has basically been dragged through the mud since he was ejected for no fucking reason. He was safe, first of all, and I don't understand where any of this nonsense on Twitter is coming from about Jarren Duran being a bad person, Jarren Duran's temper tantrum, blah, blah, blah. He was safe. End of discussion. Like, he got thrown out of the game because he knew he was safe. And the gigantic fucking billboard in Oracle Park showed he was safe. You don't have to go onto Twitter and bitch about it online saying, oh, he threw out a homophobic slur last August, yada yada. Fucking get over it. Like, I don't know what else more I can say. What he can say, he's apologized for it twice. If you don't like Jarren Duran because he's had a bad season, that's fine. But saying that he's a bad person or saying that he's not, supporting the fans, Jarren Duran, time and time and time and time again, waits outside of Fenway after games to sign autographs. Gives fans hugs, handshakes when other players won't even look fans in the eye and acknowledge that they're there. It's simply immature and stupid for people to hide behind their computers and cry about Jarren Duran's character when they are probably worse off of a person than he is. We are all human beings. We are not fucking robots. We all make mistakes. I've made mistakes in the past, and I'm sure that if you're watching this, you have too. So who the hell are you to tell Jarren Duran that he is an asshole or he's an awful human being for something that happened over a year ago? Get over yourself and get over it. It's not fucking worth it. Anyway, sorry about that tangent. There were some bright spots that came out of the last week of games because it has been a week since my last episode. And that kind of leads to the highlight player of the week, that being, God strike me down for even saying this, Lucas Giolito. In his last two starts, because he made two starts this series, he went 1-0 with a 1.50 ERA and 15 strikeouts. Most of those strikeouts came in the first start. Completely never saw that coming. I've been the biggest, get Lucas Giolito out of this organization, get him off the team kind of person. I hated the signing from the beginning because he was hurt, and then he spent the entire next season hurt again, and I didn't see any reason for him to be a part of this team when we had such a young, vibrant rotation, albeit that was when Cutter Crawford and Tanner Houck were both pitching well. The lowlight player of the week, and it's not even up for discussion, it's Walker Buehler. Walker Buehler has an almost 10 ERA in his last two starts. Somehow he won one of them. He's 1-1 in his last two starts with a 9.58 ERA and only 9 strikeouts. That's simply not good enough to be in this rotation. And unfortunately, he's a guy who can eat innings and make a start every 5 days as long as the umpire doesn't throw a tantrum and throw him out of the game. He has not looked right ever since he came back from injury. And I don't know if he's still dealing with an injury. He said that he's feeling 100%, but it's not looking great, and it might be time to discuss moving rotation roles. Either getting him out of the rotation, sending him down to Worcester once somebody is back up. But we have, Kyle Hendricks coming back from the Devers trade. There's a lot of guys who can throw and not a lot of room for error. Now that the big three, or at one point the big three were all up at the major league level, I'm no longer doing the how's it going down in Worcester segment. I'm just going to focus on the big three because that's basically what our future is as an organization. Roman, Marcelo, and Campbell as a whole are not doing great, unfortunately. so bad that one of them is even down in AAA. So, to start, Roman Anthony has played in 12 games. He has an average of 111, which is not good. Sorry, give me 1 second. Alexa, stop. Alexa, go on to do not disturb. Thank you. As I've said, sorry. So Roman Anthony in 12 games has a 111 batting average, only 4 hits, 1 home run, 5 RBIs. The thing that stands out, though, with Roman Anthony is his baseball savant page is bright red. His expected batting average is in the 340s. His hard hit rate is in the 98th percentile. Like, his baseball savant page does not look like a player with a 111 batting average. So that tells me that give him a little bit of time and his production will come. Marcelo Meyer, his stats in 24 games, so he has double the amount of games as Roman Anthony. His stats are better. However, his baseball savant page does not look as good as Roman Anthony's. In 24 games played, he has a 197 batting average, 13 hits, 4 home runs, 6 RBIs. 2 of those home runs came in the same game. 4 of those RBIs came in that 2 home run game. So I can't really say that Marcelo Meyer is hitting the cover off the ball, but he's not getting on base or hitting for average the way that you would like him to. The bright side to Marcelo Meyer is his defense has been outstanding at third base. And that could lead to a conversation later down the road about who is going to play third base going forward. Christian Campbell has struggled so bad since the beginning of May. He has now been sent down to AAA specifically to work on learning first base. And I think it's pretty obvious the way that they've been having it run in Worcester is if Christian Campbell's playing, he's a DH, because they don't want him playing any other position than first base, even if he's not playing first base during the games. He had a fantastic first month and a half of the season, but then since the middle of May has been horrible. And since the Rafael Devers trade, our offense has been smack dab in the middle of the league with 3.4 runs scored per game. So simply put, you trade your best offensive player and your offense is going to take steps backwards. Now, it wasn't quite obvious in the Giants series because we did score a lot of runs during the Giants series, albeit we didn't win the series. So what do all of those runs? Now, today's Red Sox History Minute is kind of interesting because it connects to Fenway Park, Babe Ruth, and the 1917 team. So, on today's date in 1917, Ernie Shore pitches the only perfect game in the history of Fenway Park. Babe Ruth started the game, however, he was ejected after walking the leadoff batter. Shore comes in to relieve him, and after the runner is caught stealing, he retired the next 26 straight batters. Give me 1 second. My phone's over here, blowing up. I want to make sure it's... Okay, anywho, sorry, I got into a confrontation with somebody on Twitter. So, it's kind of funny that Babe Ruth gets ejected after walking the first batter of a game. Nice to see that the umpires back then were just as much a group of bitches as they are now. But where do those two series lead us in the current standings? So we went 3-3 in the last week of games, which is 500, which is basically what this team is. The New York Yankees have been in a downward spiral, and they are now only 2.5 games above the second place team. The New York Yankees are 45-32 in first place. They are 3-7 in their last 10. The Tampa Bay Rays are now in second place. They are 43-35. And I'll get to why they're playing so well in just a minute. But they are 7-3 in their last 10 and 2.5 games back. The Blue Jays are 41-36 in third place. They are 4 games back, and they are 4-6 in their last 10. Your Boston Red Sox are 40-39, 6 games back, and they are 7-3 in their last 10. And then in 5th place are the Baltimore Orioles, who are 33-44, 12 games back, and 6-4 in their last 10. I've watched a few of the Tampa Bay Rays games in the last couple of weeks because I wanted to see how they've been able to turn their team around without superstars in their lineup. And simply put, they're playing baseball the correct way. If there are no outs, runner on first, bunt the runner over to second or steal second base. They're a fast team, and they know how to play defense better than almost anybody else in the league. It's funny that the Rays are in 2nd place with a super young rotation, very unproven bullpen, super young lineup, but they're incentivizing and they're looking at, from a foundational level, baseball at how it should be played. Running the base paths, getting on base, hitting for average. Overall, everything that the Red Sox can't do, the Rays do 10 times better. And that's the reason why they are in 2nd place instead of the Boston Red Sox. So where are we going forward? We have a 6-game, the next week, because I'm going to be recording my podcast a week from today. We have 6 games, 3 on the road to finish this 9-game road trip, and then 3 at home. The 3 on the road are against the Angels, who I feel like we've played 3 times already this year, and then the Blue Jays at home. I know who is going to be pitching for the Red Sox these next 6 games, but I only know who's pitching for the Angels. The Blue Jays have not announced any starters. Let me just double check that really quick. They have not, announced any starters. So, the last time we played the Angels, we lost the series to them. I was at the final game of that series when Lucas Giolito got shit all over. That was the Ceddanne Rafaela short porch pesky pole walk-off. But we have Walker Buehler, Garrett Crochet, and Richard Fitz going. The reason why Richard Fitz is up is because of the elbow injury to Hunter Dobbins. I'm going to butcher this name. We have Walker Buehler versus Jack Kachanowicz. Walker Buehler is 5-5 with a 5.95 ERA and 53 strikeouts. I'm just going to call him Jack. Jack is 3-8 with a 5.38 ERA and 58 strikeouts. So we basically have the battle of the bums going during tonight's game. The middle game is Garrett Crochet versus Tyler Anderson. Garrett Crochet is 7-4 with a 2.20 ERA and 125 strikeouts, simply dominant. Going up against left-handed pitcher Tyler Anderson, who is 2-5 with a 4.56 ERA and 65 strikeouts. Game 3, the rubber match of the series, is Richard Fitz versus Yasiel Kikuchi. Richard Fitz is 0-3, looking for his first win, with a 4.71 ERA and 15 strikeouts. Kikuchi is 2-6 with a 3.01 ERA and 87 strikeouts. I will say, in Kikuchi's last start, he struggled during the first 2 innings and then was basically unhittable after that. So, my best guess for the Angels series is we win the series, winning the first 2, and then Yasiel Kikuchi slams the door on us on Wednesday, and our bullpen gives up the game. It's probably going to be another one of those one-run losses. I think our offense hammers this Jack guy whose last name I can't pronounce. I think Walker Buehler has somewhat of a better start, albeit you can't really get any worse. And then Garrett Crochet does what Garrett Crochet does. I think that the Angels series is going to seem more competitive than it actually is. But I do have us taking 2 out of 3 in that series. After that, we have a 3-game series at home against the Blue Jays. We have Brian Bayo, Lucas Giolito, and what should be Walker Buehler as the starters. I can't give any predictions with how that series is going to go, simply because I don't know who's pitching for the Blue Jays. But if Brian Bayo continues to look as dominant as he has, along with Lucas Giolito, there's no reason why we shouldn't win 2 out of 3 in that series either. The Blue Jays do one thing very, very well, and it's play defense. Their rotation is full of like a bunch of 2s and 3s. They don't really have a bona fide ace like a Garrett Crochet, and you should try to aim at running up the pitch count the best you can. That way you can get to their bullpen as soon as possible, because their bullpen is atrocious. With all of that being said, that's going to move us directly into my most favorite part of any podcast that I've worked on so far, outside of the news breaking about Roman Anthony in the middle of recording. So, since I was born in the year 2000, the Boston Red Sox have won 4 championships. In 2004, 2007, 2013, and 2018. Of those 4 teams, 3 of them, the 2004, 2007, and 2018 team, saw ownership spending the most money out of any team in baseball on this roster. We were first in spending in 4, and in 07, and in 18. We were not first in 13, albeit because 13 was a fucking miracle. Since 2018, one of the most dominant seasons in the history of the Boston Red Sox, ownership basically turned the tables upside down on how they want to run this team and how they want to spend on this team. In 2018, we were number 1 in spending. And in 2019, that trend continued. Since 2019, we haven't cracked the top 3 in overall roster spending. And why is that important? Well, John Henry and the Fenway Sports Group are the owners of the Boston Red Sox. And in 2018, or albeit at the end of 2018 into 2019, John Henry famously said that a roster constructed the way it was at the moment constructed is not sustainable for an organization. He's looking at it from a business standpoint. He is not looking at it from a fan standpoint, and he is not looking at it from a owner standpoint outside of how it helps his bottom line. Henry has been the owner since 2001, and from 2001 all the way up until 2018, he has not given a fuck about what kind of money he has spent on this team. Since 2018, he has also made a couple of really big purchases in his pocket. He owns a NASCAR team now. He recently has bought the Pittsburgh Penguins hockey team, and then he made a $3 billion investment in the PGA golf organization. Since he's made those investments, the only thing he has cared about with the Boston Red Sox is making the most money. As a business person, the only way to make the most money is not to spend an insane amount of money. So, the Henry Fenway Sports Group ownership has basically been the tale of 2 stories. Everything from 2001 to 2019, and then everything since 2019. From 2004, when we won the World Series, to 2018, John Henry went over the luxury tax 8 times. Since 2019, he's gone over once. Now, really quick, what is the luxury tax? The luxury tax is a tax-based penalization system that says, and at this moment, the current tax threshold is $237 million. So you have $237 million to fill out a 40-man roster. If you go over that, you owe a particular tax percentage to the league that is supposed to be used to benefit small market teams and to start putting more money and revenue into the league. The more you go over, the higher percentage you go over, the more you have to pay. And they have a 10, 25, and 50% threshold. So if you are over 10%, you only have to pay a small amount. If you are over 15%, you have a larger percent you have to pay. And if you are over 25 and 50, so on and so forth. John Henry again, since from 2004 to 2018, gone over that amount, or even though that amount has changed, he went over the amount 8 times. He said, fuck the tax, I'm going to pay whatever we need to pay. I'm going to build this team the way it needs to be built, and we are going to move forward as a winning championship organization. But again, the more you go over that amount, the more you have to pay. Long story short, in 2018, he said, I'm done going over. 2019, 2020, and 2021, he did not go over. 2022, he did go over, and then in 2023 and 24, he didn't. So, our spending, ranked among all 30 teams since our last championship. 2019, we are first because we still had most of the same players from the 18 championship. Then, in the following order from 2020 to 2025, we are 8th, 6th, 5th, 12th, 12th, and 7th. John Henry is running this fucking team like the Tampa Bay Rays. He is not spending the money on the marquee name players like he should, and I have the evidence to back that shit up. Our revenue since our last championship, even though our last championship was in 2018, and we have basically been under the top 3 in spending since our last title, we have 3rd in the league in revenue in the last 6 years combined. There's simply no excuse for it. So when you are 3rd in revenue, that means you are making more money than 27 other teams in the league. Now, because Fenway is a living, breathing museum, part of that has to do with the tourist attraction. Part of it also has to do with John Henry not fucking spending money on this team. COVID took a massive toll on revenue spending also. Because of COVID, John Henry and owners across the league lost billions of dollars. We were top 10 in revenue in 2021, and then we've been basically back to top 3 since 2023. And the reason why I bring up the revenue spending is because right now we are 4th place since 2024. The Yankees, Dodgers, and Cubs are the only 3 teams ahead of us. Those 3 teams are the 3 best teams in the fucking league. And simply put, John Henry has stopped allowing our general managers to spend money on players. And that's part of the reason why I don't put all of the blame on Craig Breslow for the current roster construction and Chaim Bloom, because I think that the damage that John Henry and Chaim Bloom did together as a tandem owner and CBO of baseball, I genuinely think that they hurt this franchise deeper than we could ever have imagined. And I went through the entire 26-man roster, figured out how we got every single player, and then all of the players that we could have gotten during their free agency signing period window or any of that. And the roster that we could have had around this team compared to what we had to deal with during the 2019 to 2023 era of Boston Red Sox is pretty fucking pathetic. So from 2018, we had Dave Dombrowski as our general manager. Now, Dave Dombrowski was notorious for not being afraid to spend the extra dollar if it meant getting the good player. He also wasn't afraid to exhaust our farm system if it meant trading for a marquee piece. Now, because of that, he went under fire for not really having a deep farm system. However, when you see players like Betts, Benintendi, Bogarts, like all of those players, even if some of them were Sherrington guys, like there were still pieces around the farm system that Dave got. Now, I can't sit here and say that the farm system was great under Dave Dombrowski because it wasn't. But I'm more of the type of person that cares about the team in Boston and not necessarily what the team's going to be in 5 to 10 years, because you never know what free agency or what individual in free agency is going to want to play in Boston. For all we know, Vladdy Guerrero could have said, the hell to you, Toronto. I want to go play in Boston. I'm going to take whatever contract they want to offer me. So after Dave Dombrowski was essentially fired because he was told he can no longer spend money, John Henry hired the notorious mass murderer, Chaim Bloom, in September. I'm sorry, not in September. The offseason of 2018 to 2019. No, I'm sorry, in 2019 into 2020. I apologize, my timeline's a little off. So, the Red Sox, coming off of a horrendous season in 2019, fired Dave Dombrowski. He, like I said, he was notorious for burning down the farm system, but he also created some of the best teams in recent history. It was very apparent that in the offseason of 2019, or well, really 2018 to 2019, they were no longer going to spend money the way they should have. They then chose Chaim Bloom to be their next chief baseball operations guy. He was a Tampa Bay Rays assistant. And part of the reason why I say we're running the team like the Tampa Bay Rays is because we're basically trying to be the Tampa Bay Rays. The Tampa Bay Rays consistently win baseball games, but never spend the money and never make it to the World Series. They made it to the World Series during the COVID year and then got absolutely shit on by the Dodgers. Under the Chaim Bloom era, the Red Sox either traded or refused to re-sign the following players: Mookie Betts, Xander Bogaerts, Christian Vasquez, Nathan Eovaldi, Kyle Schwarber, and Mitch Moreland. All of those people together were essentially the reason why you won the title in 2018, outside of Kyle Schwarber, who was a big part of the reason why you made it one out away from making the World Series in 2021. In the 3 off seasons that Chaim Bloom was in charge of, 2019 to 20, 2020 to 2021, and 2021 to 2022, there were a massive selection of free agents that he could have signed. In the 2020 offseason, you have some of the following names: Garrett Cole, Zach Wheeler, JT Realmuto, George Springer, Marcus Semien, and Kevin Gausman. Now, Garrett Cole went to the Yankees. He made the most amount of money in the history of starting pitchers, but there's no reason why you could not have gone out and gotten Zach Wheeler. Do you know who your starting pitcher was on opening day of 2020? Corey fucking Kluber. Why on earth would you not put $220 million on the table for Zach Wheeler? Zach Wheeler has basically had a Cy Young season every year for 5 effing seasons. JT Realmuto would be awesome for this baseball team. Great catcher that the Phillies ended up signing. And what's even worse is the list gets 10 times worse once you get into 2021 and 2022. In 2021, the biggest free agents available: Carlos Correa, Corey Seager, Freddie Freeman, Chris Bryant, although that contract absolutely sucks for the Rockies, Kevin Gausman, again, Robbie Ray, Trevor Story, Max Scherzer, Marcus Stroman, Starling Marte, Kyle Schwarber, and Carlos Rodon. In 2022, Aaron Judge, Jacob deGrom, Trey Turner, Carlos Correa again, Xander Bogaerts, Justin Verlander, Dansby Swanson, Chris Bassett, Brandon Nimmo, Kodai Senga, Wilson Contreras, Josh Bell, Nathan Eovaldi, and Anthony Rizzo. Thought my nose was bleeding. Of those 3 off seasons that I've named, you want to know how many fucking players the Red Sox signed out of all of those All-Stars? 1. You want to know why the Red Sox have been .500 for the past 5 seasons? There's your fucking reason. We signed 1 of those All-Stars that I listed. 1 of them. And that was Trevor Story. And we signed Trevor Story extremely late in the offseason because Chaim Bloom had literally nothing else he could have done. He signed Trevor Story because the entire city of Boston, sports writers, all of the media were saying, what the hell are we doing? Why are we not spending money on X, Y, and Z? Why are we not going out and getting Trey Turner? Why are we not going out and getting Chris Bassett, Wilson Contreras, Kodai Senga, Nathan Eovaldi? Like, we could have re-signed Nathan Eovaldi, and he could be, to this day, still a starter for the Boston Red Sox. But instead, they chose to let him walk in free agency. Robbie Ray would have been a fantastic starter for this Boston Red Sox team. Max Scherzer could have cemented his legacy as one of the greatest starting pitchers in the 21st century as a member of the Boston Red Sox, but didn't because the Chaim Bloom was simply too fucking cheap. And I can't even blame him for all of it because ownership told him, here's how much money you can spend. So in those 3 seasons that Bloom was in charge of the chief of baseball operations, he signed one of those people. I mean, again, that was Trevor Story. He did give Rafael Devers a contract extension before the 2023 season for a 10-year contract or $313 million. That is a huge move, but there's no reason why you could not have done that, signed Trevor Story, and then maybe gotten, say, Kyle Schwarber, Carlos Rodon, Brandon Nimmo, because like Dansby Swanson would have been a perfect replacement for Xander Bogaerts when you knew, that Marcelo Meyer was at least 3 years away. It simply just doesn't make any sense. And most of the Bloom era in Boston was known for trading the best players or letting them walk away. Mookie Betts, Xander Bogaerts, the list I went through earlier. During the Bloom era, the Red Sox their record was 272 and 274. Simply not good enough, never making the postseason outside of the 2021 season. And simply, it was not good enough for ownership, and they fired Chaim Bloom. They then named Craig Breslow as their new CBO for the Boston Red Sox. And since then, he has been in charge from the 2023 from the 2023 offseason to today. 2023-2024 offseason, I should say. So he's been in charge of 2 offseasons. Thankfully, the Red Sox have increased their spending barely. And unfortunately, we have increased our spending while also getting rid of some really important pieces that were on this lineup at the time. And before I even get to who we didn't sign, yes, I'm acknowledging that Craig Breslow and ownership spent money this past offseason. My take on the entire situation is they spent this offseason because they knew they should have spent in the past offseasons. All of the failures of the last 4 years led to Craig Breslow and ownership being forced to be more aggressive this past year. As soon as Breslow was named the chief of baseball operations in October, he basically went on a... Hold on. Alexa, stop. He went on a fire sale of essentially most of the key pieces on this team. From October of 2023 to December of 2023, he traded Alex Verdugo, who was the key piece in the Mookie Betts trade, and Chris Sale. And in return, we got Greg Weissert, Richard Fitz, and Vaughn Grisham. He then also traded for Justin Slayton for a player whose name honestly doesn't even matter that much. So, from October to December of 2023, Craig Breslow basically got 3 of our starting 26. Vaughn Grissom was supposed to be the key piece of the Chris Sale trade, and Vaughn Grissom's time in Boston, while he's been up at the major league level, has not been successful, simply put. Richard Fitz was a project, and Justin Slayton was also a project. They had some good stuff then. albeit the expectations for them to be everyday starters or key pieces of this bullpen were not there. Same thing with Greg Weiser. So the fact that those three pieces worked out of those four players we got back in return for Alex Verdugo and Chris Sale's, pretty impressive, but it's also a little careless. We did, in the offseason between 2023 and 2024, signed Tyler O'Neill, Lucas Giolito, Liam Hendriks, and gave an additional contract to Nick Pivetta and a 6-year extension to Brian Bayo. Now, Tyler O'Neill is a power right-handed bat, although he has average struggles. So he struggles to get on base, he struggles to hit for average, but he will hit 35 homers, and that's exactly what he did. Lucas Giolito was coming off of Tommy John surgery, so they knew he was going to need time to rehab. I was not a huge fan of that signing because of all of the pieces that were left on the table that the Red Sox passed up on. This was another situation where ownership said, instead of getting the key ace, why don't you go give Lucas Giolito $30 million instead of spending $140 million over the next 5? Some of the notable free agents that the Red Sox passed up on during the 2023 to 2024 offseason, I am including Shohei Ohtani, although the expectations for him coming to Boston were not even there. Shohei Ohtani, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, Blake Snell, Cody Bellinger, Aaron Nola, Josh Hader, Sonny Gray, JD Martinez, Matt Chapman, Shota Imanaga, and Rhys Hoskins. That group together wins you a World Series, and it's not even close. Sonny Gray could have been your ace, and he would not have cost you the same amount of money that Blake Snell would have cost you, or Aaron Nola. You could have had Matt Chapman play third base and then move Devers to DH and had that conversation then. Shota Imanaga has basically been one of the best pitchers in the National League since he became a member of the Cubs. Rhys Hoskins could have been your everyday first baseman. I have a Rhys Hoskins Philly jersey in my closet. Josh Hader could have been closing games for you, but instead, you sign a hurt Lucas Giolito, Tyler O'Neill, who you know cannot hit for average, Liam Hendriks, who you knew was hurt at the time, and then gave Brian Bayo a 6-year contract extension. It's simply unacceptable, and it should be unacceptable from a fan's standpoint. Now, there were some significant changes that took place in this past offseason. And I said it again, and I will say it again and again and again. Yes, I am aware that ownership and Craig Breslow put their nuts on the table and spent money. I am also well aware that they could have done more because of how many insane free agents they passed up on to form the team that they have now. Their moves, their big moves from this past offseason. Signing Aroldis Chapman, who has been basically the best closer in the American League East. Trading for Garrett Crochet. Trading for Carlos Narvaez. Signing Patrick Sandoval, who was again hurt. Signing Walker Buehler. And signing Alex Bregman. Now, the trade for Carlos Narvaez was not expected to result in anything fantastic. Carlos Narvaez was supposed to be Connor Wong's backup. But Carlos Narvaez has essentially been the best catcher in the American League East. He's obviously not the best catcher in the American League when you have Cal Raleigh playing at a Babe Ruthian-esque level, but the trade for Carlos Narvaez up to this point has worked out. The Alex Bregman signing is essentially the reason why Rafael Devers is now a member of the Giants. Patrick Sandoval has yet to throw a pitch because he, again, is coming back from Tommy John surgery. So he's another starting pitcher that the Red Sox got for cheap because he was hurt. The list of notable free agents that the Red Sox passed up on in this past offseason is insane. Simply insane. And I'm including Juan Soto on this list because Juan Soto did receive a massive offer from the Boston Red Sox according to all reports across the board. We passed up on Juan Soto, Willy Adames, Pete Alonso, Corbin Burns, Max Fried, Anthony Santander, Roki Sasaki, Blake Snell, Shane Bieber, Nathan Eovaldi, Carlos Estevez, Jack Flaherty, Jeff Hoffman, Clay Holmes, Sean Manaea, Nick Pivetta, Tanner Scott, and Christian Walker. All of those people that I mentioned are at positions that this team desperately needs at this moment. Christian Walker would have been a fantastic first baseman for the Boston Red Sox, and it would have only cost you like $130 million. Pete Alonso wasn't given a contract by any other team in baseball. He signed a 2-year extension or a 2-year contract with the Mets. Give me a good reason why Pete Alonso would have been a worse off first baseman than Tristan Casas. Right now, we have Abraham Toro and Romy Gonzalez flip-flopping first base. And albeit Abraham Toro has been fantastic, but Pete Alonso is levels above Abraham Toro in terms of production, power, and consistency at the plate. Corbin Burnes and Max Fried would be phenomenal additions to go along with Garrett Crochet. And you easily, because Garrett Crochet was a trade, not a signing, you easily could have given traded for Garrett Crochet while also getting, say, Max Fried. Now, I don't expect the Red Sox to get all of these players every season, but the fact that we never had real substantial offers outside of Juan Soto is fucking embarrassing. We could be looking at a rotation of Garrett Crochet, Nick Pivetta, Jack Flaherty, Nathan Eovaldi, Brian Bayo. Period. But instead, we have Garrett Crochet, a dude with a basically 7 ERA in Walker Buehler, Lucas Giolito, who has been the most inconsistent pitcher in baseball, Brian Bayo, who has been relatively really good, and then a combination of Hunter Dobbins and Richard Fitz. It's simply not good enough, and the expectations from fan base and from the rest of the team should be 10 times higher. And that's why I took Rafael Devers' side from the fucking beginning of the Rafael Devers saga. Because it all started with him saying it's Craig Breslow's job to sign players. Our bullpen has been taxed the entire season. You mean to tell me that Jeff Hoffman or Clay Holmes wouldn't have been good additions to this bullpen? Like, we're looking at a real world where Aroldis Chapman is going in the 7th, and then you have Jeff Hoffman in the 8th, and then Tanner Scott in the 9th. Like, that 7, 8, 9 wins you ball games all fucking year. But instead, we have to deal with Garrett Whitlock, who was horrible for the first half of the season, Justin Slayton, who was horrible for the second half of the season, Liam Hendricks, who is garbage, and then Aroldis Chapman, who has been fantastic. Now, I will give our bullpen some credit. We have had some bright spots. Greg Weisert's been fantastic. Luis Guerrero, although he's a rookie, has looked really good when he's pitched. But in this offseason alone, the Red Sox could have rebuilt their entire franchise to be extremely competitive, but instead, we basically cut the cord at we're getting Crochet and we got Alex Bregman. We don't need to do anything else. My biggest qualm is not handling the first base situation because they knew Tristan Casas has had an injury problem. They knew that he was fragile, and they also knew he was super freaking inconsistent. Alexa, stop. I'm going to unplug you. Jesus. And yes, again, I'm aware that they made some fantastic moves, but they fell short of the expectations that the Boston Red Sox should have for themselves. Since Craig Breslow has taken over the role of the CBO from October 2023 to the time of my notes 2 days ago, the Red Sox are 120 and 118. At this point now, they are 120 and 120. The Red Sox, up until this point in this season, have barely played over 500, and it's because of the lack of spending over the last 5 seasons. One offseason, one Garrett Crochet and one Alex Bregman is not going to fix 5 years of wasted time. If we didn't have Garrett Crochet, we would probably be 7 or 8 games worse than what we are now. Because when Garrett Crochet takes the mound, you know that we have a chance to win every fifth day. So who is to blame for the current Red Sox situation? When you look at their lineup, and this is a lineup from a couple of days ago, you have Duran, Narvaez, Anthony, Toro, Abreu, Story, Meyer, Rafaela, Hamilton, and then Hunter Dobbins was the starter. So this is going back to the Giants series. Duran was drafted by Dave Dombrowski. Narvaez was traded by Craig Breslow. I think we can both agree that those trades that drafting in that trade has worked out so far. Roman Anthony was a comp pick for not giving Eddie Rodriguez a qualifying offer when he hit free agency. Obviously, Roman Anthony being the number one prospect in baseball, that worked out for Chaim Bloom. Abraham Toro was signed to be the everyday starting first baseman for your Worcester Red Sox, or Woo Sox, not to be your everyday first baseman for your Boston Red Sox. Toro has played fantastic. I will give him his credit. I will tip my cap to him. But the expectations that we have as a baseball team, I mean, we're coming from a franchise that's had Kevin Youkilis, like Mike Lowell, David Ortiz, Mitch Moreland at first base. We have not had a good first baseman since Mitch Moreland left in 2019. Abreu was traded by Chaim Bloom for Christian Vasquez. I think we can all agree that Abreu has been one of the best outfielders that we have on this team. His insane start to the season is in like the record books in Red Sox history. His defense is outstanding. He won the Gold Glove his rookie season, which only Dustin Pedroia can say in the last 10 years. And then you have Trevor Story, who was signed by Chaim Bloom. I think we can all agree that given how much money we gave Story during that contract has not worked out. Don Rafaela was a international free agent signing in 2017 by Dave Dombrowski. Marcelo Meyer was drafted by Chaim Bloom. When you draft fourth overall because you literally won 21 games the season before, this was the COVID year, I can't really give credit to Chaim Bloom for taking the obvious fucking pick. But what happened when you selected Marcelo Meyer, who was a lifelong shortstop, is you alienated Xander Bogaerts, who was the backbone for this team ever since he joined in 2013. So you see a trend where we alienate cornerstones of championship teams, and then we see them go play for West Coast teams. David Hamilton was a piece of a trade that sent Hunter Renfroe to the Brewers in 2021. That's another Bloom trade. I think we can all agree that David Hamilton, awesome for his speed, is not an everyday Major League Baseball player. And then Hunter Dobbins was drafted by Chaim Bloom in 2021. When I was making this lineup chart with who was signed and traded by whom, what stood out to me is there is a lot of Bloom on this list, and go fucking figure. Now, our bench, bullpen, and the rest of our 26-man is kind of a combination of all of the above. But our current roster construction, all of our starters, most of them, albeit because of injuries with Alex Bregman, are because of Chaim Bloom. So this goes back to my point that Chaim Bloom, the damage that he did to this organization, didn't just last for a couple of seasons. It's now bleeding into basically a decade of fucking terrible baseball. Connor Wong was one of the key pieces of the trade that sent Mookie Betts to the Dodgers. Romy Gonzalez was a signing by Breslow, who was claimed off of waivers in January of 2024. Tristan Casas, albeit a pretty promising prospect at the time, has not worked out. That was a draftee by Dave Dombrowski. Alex Bregman, hurt, was a signing by Breslow. Nate Eaton was a Breslow signing for a minor league deal in 2024. No expectations for him to be a everyday major leaguer. Masataka Yoshida was a Bloom signing, and one of the worst Bloom signings in Bloom's span of being the chief baseball CBO. Rob Refsnyder was a Bloom signing. It was a minor league deal in 2021, and I will give Bloom credit. That signing has worked out. Rob Refsnyder is one of the best left-handed one of the best hitters we have against left-handed pitching, and we struggle against left-handed pitching. So the fact that we have him coming off the bench to start against lefties is fantastic. Aroldis Chapman was a free agent signing by Breslow. Liam Hendricks was another free agent signing by Breslow, but he was hurt at the time. Justin Slayton was a trade piece that we got back for a player whose name I'm forgetting to put in my notes, but that was a Breslow trade. Garrett Whitlock was a Rule 5 claim by Bloom. There were no expectations for Garrett Whitlock to be a dominant, everyday bullpen arm. And that's what he's turned into. There's actually an expectation to have him start with the former former CBO, and that basically ruined Garrett Whitlock's career. Justin Wilson, one of the better bullpen signings of this past season, was a signing by Breslow, although he had a blow-up outing against the Giants just this past series. Again, Greg Weiser was one of the return pieces for the Verdugo trade from the Yankees. That has worked out for us so far. That was another Breslow signing. Brendan Bernardino was a Chaim Bloom signing. At the time of the signing, that was a stupid signing, but now looking back at it, that is a pretty decent signing. Luis Guerrero was drafted by Bloom. Jorge Alcala was a trade piece by Breslow most recently in the past couple of weeks. Zach Kelly signed by Bloom to a minor league deal in 2021. Eric Crochet, obviously the big-time trade piece by Breslow. Tanner Houck was a Dombrowski draft pick in the later rounds. He has been inconsistent his entire career, and I honestly hope that he ends up back in the bullpen. Walker Buehler was a free agent signing by Breslow. Brian Bale was an international free agent signing by Dombrowski. Lucas Giolito was signed by Breslow while he was rehabbing. Hunter Dobbins was a Bloom draftee in 22, and then Cutter Crawford was a Dombrowski pick, and then Patrick Sandoval was a Breslow hurt signing. So most of the bright spots of this team, going back to where'd it go? There it is. Duran, Dombrowski, Rafaela, Dombrowski. When you look at their bench pieces, Tristan Casas, albeit he's been horrible while he's been on the Major League roster, that's a promising piece. You have Tanner Houck, another Dombrowski guy. Cutter Crawford, another Dombrowski guy. So it looks like some of the brightest pieces of this team came from either Dave Dombrowski or from Craig Breslow, outside of Craig Breslow dumping Rafael Devers. So it's obvious that the two groups of people that have hurt this organization and this franchise more than anybody else is John Henry and the Fenway Sports Group, that's one, and then Chaim Bloom, that's two. The tandem of Chaim Bloom and the Fenway Sports Group and ownership single-handedly is probably the reason why the Red Sox will not win a World Series for the next 5 to 6 seasons. And it's simply unacceptable from a fan standpoint when we have teams like the 04, the 05, the 07, the 08, the 010 team, or the 2010 team, the 13 team, albeit that was a miracle, the 16, 17, 18 teams. And the fact that we go from the possibility of having Blake Snell, Shane Bieber, Nick Pivetta, or Justin Verlander, Dansby Swanson, Chris Bassett, and we're left with, where'd the rest of our rotation go? Zach Kelly, Walker Buehler, Lucas Giolito, Patrick Sandoval, players that are not contributing to the team. There's a huge problem there, and genuinely, and this leads me to some of my final thoughts, if you as an owner, John Henry, Tom Warner, Fenway Sports Group, if you are not going to take care of the Boston Red Sox like you are a fan, sell the fucking team. You have Liverpool, you have the Pittsburgh Penguins, you have basically one half of the PGA. Go have fun with them. Sell the Boston Red Sox to somebody else or start fucking taking care of this team like they deserve to be taken care of. Rafael Devers shouldn't have to call out ownership and the general manager for not buying or getting a first baseman during free agency and then being traded to the Dodgers because of it. Like, simply put, if ownership just spends the money on this team the way that they should have been doing all along, Rafael Devers is still on this team. Period. And then part of the reason why Rafael Devers wasn't traded to other teams is because ownership no longer wanted to pay Devers' contract. According to 3 reports that I have seen, there is a trade on the table to the New York Mets that saw Devers and Duran and Chapman traded for basically like 6 or 7 prospects. The reason why that trade fell apart is because the Mets were only willing to pay 75% of Devers' contract. So when you are trading Devers to the Giants because they are taking 100% of his contract, you have a problem as an owner. You should not be an owner of the Boston Red Sox if you are going to trade players because of their attitude and their contract. So if you are not going to take this team seriously, sell the fucking team. End of story. My second final thought, and this goes back to the Giants series, I'm tired. I'm sick and tired of umpires, not only with the Red Sox, but across the league, costing teams wins. There have been at least 10 examples off the top of my head from this season alone where an umpire has missed a call and it has directly led to a loss on the hands of the Red Sox. The league deserves better. Fans that are paying an exorbitant amount of money to see games, they deserve better. If you are going to have replay in the major leagues, if you use it and you can tell that the play is should be overturned, don't fucking sit there and say that the call stands, runners out because your pride is too fucking big. This goes back to the Jarren Duran situation when he kept his hand on second base and was still called out even though the replay showed that he was safe. What's the point of even having replay if it's not going to fucking... My third final thought is the Dobbins injury could be something serious. For somebody, again, who has had Tommy John surgery, the fact that he is dealing with an elbow strain again, they did not say that there was any sort of ligament damage, but an elbow strain shuts you down from throwing anything, a rock, a pebble, a baseball, for at least 2 weeks. So we're looking at a possibility of Richard Fitz being the every 5th day starter for maybe the next 4 weeks until Kyle Harrison comes up from that Devers trade. Our offense, especially during the Mariners series when we were facing all-star level pitching, was putrid. And Breslow needs to make a trade for a power bat, and it needs to happen, right now. I don't care who it is. I would love a Brent Rooker, albeit I don't expect them to make that type of trade. They need to they need to trade for a power bat right fucking now. If I were the Boston Red Sox, and I've said this again, I'm calling up the Athletics and seeing what they would take for Tyler Soderstrom, because Tyler Soderstrom is young, has team control, and has a lot of power in his bat. He kind of reminds me of a much better version of Tristan Casas. And what's awesome about that is you can play him at first. Position that you need production from when Abraham Toro is not on the field. Another thing that the Red Sox really need to trade for is better defenders. Because I'm tired of seeing either Romy Gonzalez or David Hamilton cost this team runs and wins. You can make the argument that between David Hamilton and I'm blanking. I just said his name. Romy Gonzalez. They are the reason why you lost the Giants series. Our interior defense has been horrendous for 5 straight seasons, and it is now bleeding into the outfield a little bit. And that leads me into my last final thought. We need a long-term solution at second base. Clearly, Christian Campbell is not it because his defense is simply not good enough. And if I were the Boston Red Sox and if I was Craig Breslow, I'm having a conversation with Alex Bregman. I'm saying, I have absolutely loved everything I've seen from Marcelo Meyer at third base since he's started playing 26 games ago. What is it going to take for you to be my everyday second baseman like the Red Sox originally intended? So I think with the way that could be constructed, once Christian Campbell gets his training at first base, you could realistically be looking at Christian Campbell at first, Alex Bregman at second, Trevor Story at short, and then Marcelo Meyer at third. A couple of other last-minute things. Genuinely, I don't understand why Roman Anthony can't just be the everyday designated hitter. That would keep Duran, Ceddanne Rafaela, and Wilyer Abreu in the outfield, and then allow Roman Anthony to only focus on hitting, which is the biggest adjustment from the minor leagues to the major league level. Now, one more final thing, and I think this is going to be a good way to end off this podcast because I have been going on forever. In one of the last episodes of the Section 10 podcast, which basically was the reason why I was inspired to make this podcast, Tyler Milliken basically broke down the entire Rafael Devers saga piece by piece by piece. And I said it at the time of the entire thing going down. Rafael Devers is, while he has made some errors, not on the field, but like off the field in terms of his comments, he should not be blamed for not wanting to play first base. So I'm going to play a 2-minute audio clip, and I'm just going to sit here, and this is going to be how the show ends. Tyler Milliken breaking down event by event on how Rafael Devers went from being your all-star third baseman to being a member of the New York Giants, a member of the San Francisco Giants. Because according to Tyler Milliken, and he is absolutely correct, ownership, and especially Craig Breslow, completely screwed up this entire situation. Because this all started when Alex Bregman was signed to be a member of the Boston Red Sox, and ownership and Craig Breslow and Alex Cora all said that Alex Bregman was going to be your future all-star second baseman. So we are just going to play this clip. It's going to take about 1.5 minutes, and then we are going to end it after. That's
the idea is to move
during the season last year. Never had that conversation. Second baseman. So that also brought up a really good point that I haven't even mentioned at all during any of my episodes on this podcast. Rafael Devers was the first person to show up during spring training. He was there 3 weeks before any other player was even in Fort Myers. So don't sit here and tell me that Rafael Devers his selfish attitude is the reason why he's a member of the Giants. It's simply because Craig Breslow didn't have the balls to have the right conversations with Rafael Devers when they should have been had in the first place. Tyler Milliken kept saying, they were going to have an internal conversation. Those never happened. They just said, Rafael Devers, you're not playing third base anymore. And he goes, what the hell are you talking about? I've been here. I've been at camp for 3 weeks. I've been training at third base. You have never once told me the entire offseason that the plan was to move on from me from third base. Rafael Devers said during his introductory press conference with the Giants, essentially that if the Red Sox told him at the beginning of the offseason that he was being moved to a different position, he would still be a member of the Red Sox. So, simply put, over the past 5 seasons, this team, this organization, stopped paying its players, started trading all of its superstars, stopped caring about how the organization was ran, and it is now resulting in players being disgruntled and players leaving to go play for other teams. So I do appreciate you all staying, if you have, for this episode. I do apologize for this episode's length. I was correct in it being the longest episode to date. Summarize the entire thing. Ownership's got to go. Fenway Sports Group needs to sell the team to somebody who is capable of caring, capable of winning, and capable of formulating a team while spending the money on the players that need to be spent, while also maintaining those relationships with your superstar players. So I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day, and go Sox.